Here at Baruch's Zicklin School of Business, the faculty formulated 9 learning goals, one of which suggests that our students ought to learn leadership competencies. Many of the CEOs who have visited Baruch to discuss leadership with our students have spoken about a decision-making competency.
My boss's boss's boss was named Gordon. Is there anyone here named Gordon, by the way? I don't know what it is about that name. I think of Gordon as a powerful name. I'd go into his office, I'd say, hey, I got this great idea, and I'd sit there and explain it. And his reaction, his very maddening, his very frustrating reaction was, thank you. That was it. But that thought was completely belied by one thing, the quality of his decisions. Gordon was, like most leaders, like a good leader, remarkably decisive. When he made a decision, that was the end of the discussion. We were expected to perform. No questions asked, no excuses. And Gordon's behavior kind of clicked with me as being very much in common with certain people in history. It turns out George Washington, when you read the letters of the people who were around him, had exactly the same maddening disposition. And he had people like Jefferson and Hamilton arguing big ideas, debating in front of him, trying to coax out of him any reaction. He's kind of like a father figure to them, and they would never get a reaction. And yet, when he came time to make a decision, he made the decision. He was extraordinarily decisive. That was the way we were going to go. No questions asked. All of his people knew that.
Hello, I'm Donald Redenberg, Professor of Management in the Zicklin School at Baruch College. 2 challenging facets of decision-making are strategic decision-making and change management. Strategic decision-making involves a forward-thinking, functionally integrated perspective that scans markets and gauges organizational strengths to define growth opportunities.
The real benefit of a corporation is that you have the strength in numbers, the diversity of opinion, of lifestyle, of outlook that you get by bringing a disparate group of people together in a corporate environment and then listening to them all and empowering them to advocate for their position is extraordinarily valuable. This is another failure of many aspects of large corporate America, which is changing, but not necessarily as fast as possible. And that is the fact that there has been so much homogeneity within the senior management levels, whether it's called white males or whether it's called WASPs or Eastern establishment or whatever. Any uniformity is a bad idea. You want to create diversity because the value of an advocacy is that you have people advocating different things. If everybody's all advocating the same thing, it's not going to generate the best answer. We used to have a person in our finance department. Unfortunately, he died 2 years ago. But he was a wonderful man who came out with every strange idea you can imagine. And out of every 10 strange, bizarre ideas he had, 9 of them were worthless and wasted time and took a lot of energy to dispute. But one of them was so unique and so ingenious and so valuable, it was worth the cost of putting up with the 9 crazy ideas. And that the company would have been worse off in the absence of this real genius, actually, who came out with answers and ideas that were so outlying that no one would normally come to them. And a corporation, a successful corporation, has the luxury, it seems to me, of having someone like that. And when you have someone like that, you shouldn't dismiss them, even though 90% of the time you will, in fact, dismiss their ideas. But you need to figure out how you can draw out the benefits of that one unusual decision.
Leaders undertaking significant change in organizations must recognize that change is a process requiring management, not an announcement event. With focused values and clear objectives, effective decision makers can change technology, structure, or culture, seeking strategic adaptation.
And because consumers are relatively fickle, it also changes every day because their brand loyalties change, their perceptions change, the options they have expand. And so you've always got to reinvent. Every day is a day of reinvention with what you're doing. And so there's an arc to your career. And I think that's important to have an arc, to constantly be learning for whatever reason, either because your job's getting bigger, or the industry is changing, or the competitive frame is changing, or there's different regulation, or whatever it is. But you need something to be changing that makes it more challenging each day rather than less.
Effective leaders emphasize results and thus focus on execution. Managing change, including strategic change, involves formulating an implementation plan that includes overcoming resistance.
The danger, what you have to be really aware of, and a political student counts for something, he's got to be aware of the benefits versus the risks of working around people in an organization. Because ultimately, you're better off by getting more people rather than not around an idea. And sometimes that means going through people who are very recalcitrant, and they're the ones that you have to get through, and you have to sell them. But a good quality of leadership is picking up the skills to be able to woo them, to be able to bring them over to your side, or at the very least, to get them out of the way as obstacles, and to get their permission to move on and share it with somebody else.
Leaders must understand the context of their decision. Guest speakers coming to Baruch to discuss leadership with our students have helped our students appreciate the importance of framing decisions appropriately when confronting risk and uncertainty.
There's never a perfect time. I mean, sometimes decisions have to be made with incomplete information. And that, I think, is one of the reasons why multiple hypothesis is so powerful. It's because there is never a situation where you're going to have all the information. You're going to be making decisions under uncertainty. The best that you can hope for when it comes time to make a decision, which is almost always going to be sooner than you want to, is that you've got whatever data you could possibly have collected along the way, which means a lot of openness to data coming in. You're looking for it, in fact. And some mental, the ability to simply process that data against all the hypotheses that you could have come up with. So that when it comes time to make the decision, you say, okay, here they are. What does the data support? It supports this. It may support it weakly. It may support it very tenuously, but it supports this better than anything else. That's the best you can do.
Whatever the industry, whatever the position, top leaders' decision-making tips help Baruch students to hear the right stuff.